Well, leadership is not just about wearing a fancy title, it's about making tough decisions, adapting to chaos, and someone looking confident while doing all this. Today on Business Banking and Beyond, we have someone who knows exactly how to handle the ups and downs of leadership. Mr. Tese, entrepreneur and author of The Versatile Leader. His book is packed with wisdom, using fun and powerful metaphors to help leaders think like architects, physicians, and diplomats. Basically, if you have ever wished you had a leadership cheat code, this is it. This book is meant for that. So, whether you are running a startup, managing a team, or just trying to survive office politics, this episode is for you. Let's dive in and learn how to lead like a pro. Welcome, Mr. Tese, to Business Banking and Beyond. Well, today I'm really glad to have you on the show, Mr. Tese, because as a person as well, I'm a great reader. I always love to read books. A lot of books I've read, and I still want to continue to that. And today, sitting in front of an author gives me an immense pleasure, and especially who writes a book on leadership. I feel leadership is the most important thing right now, which this world requires. I would not say organizations, but I would say the country even requires the right leaderships, inspires, motivates, gives the right direction to the company and to the country. So thank you so much, first of all, Mr. Tese, to come on Business Banking and Beyond.
Thanks so much, Hemant. It's a great pleasure for me to be here with you. Thank you.
Well, your book is coming up, The Versatile Leader, and I want to learn a lot from you. So before I jump into the book and understand about the book, I want to know your journey. What's your journey?
Well, my journey started more than 10 decades ago. 5 decades ago. And I grew up in a Nigerian village, a typical African village, with my dad and my mom and siblings. With my dad, actually would insist that all the village deliberations, those leadership stuff, the kids have to be around, hang around and listen to what adults were talking about. And there I picked up a few things, African proverbs, and you find that in the book. Then I went to school, I studied engineering. And after my graduation, I found a job and eventually I ended up in the oil and gas industry, even though I'm in the IT sector. And very interestingly, at some point, I got promoted to become a supervisor. It happened to be the same year I got married, and I had challenges both ways. And I found a mentor who actually taught me leadership, which helped me both areas. And of course, the title of my book, The Versatile Leader, has to do with the fact that leadership is not just about work, it's also about home and everywhere else.
Got it. So that was something which happened during your setup of companies.
Yes.
I'm believing that it must be initial years of your setup.
Of course, in many years, yes.
When you were having your management and you tried to make them learn what you have learned in terms of leadership, and it completely got destroyed.
Exactly.
Okay, before I move on to these learnings, what exactly is these learnings? I'll re-summarize up. You were born in Nigeria village.
Yes.
Then you went on doing a job and then setting up your own entrepreneurial firm, correct?
Yes.
I think it is the time to discuss about the most important, which I have felt a concept in your book, which is S-curve. Well, I have book in my front and I've read this 1 or 2 times already. And I really like this concept. Can you explain me what is S-curve and how did you come on this?
Okay. Again, we're back to timeline, right? 2017, there was an event of young entrepreneurs, and someone, they invited me to kind of share my journey, what I have learned over the years. So the question I asked myself is, what is it that I would have appreciated if someone told me when I was starting out? And that is what led to the S curve. I say, I wish someone told me the different phases my business would face. And usually when you see this S curve, it's about products and project, not so much about business. But being able to adapt it, being an engineer, we kind of innovate a little bit. So I take that concept and kind of apply it. And most entrepreneurs, of course, it's also a testament that you're a business person, because that is where they really find very, very interesting.
So what exactly S-curves explain in your...
Basically, it starts from when you first have the business idea. What do you do with the idea? That's the preparation
that's
phase.
Stage 0.
The stage 0, exactly.
Okay, preparation. You call that stage preparation.
Yes.
Okay.
And then the second stage is the startup. Then growth, maturity, and decline. So each of these stages, the book explains the major thing that we find at different stages.
So what are the things in preparation stage, if you can define that?
Where preparation stage it starts with a dream. And I think there's a quote there. Maybe you can help read it out, right? This quote here by my
The best ideas don't die in the marketplace, they die in the shower.
Exactly.
People don't give themselves permission to walk out of the shower, write it on napkin and take it into the world. They're afraid people will say, this is just a crazy idea.
Exactly. And that's my friend Niraj Kumar who wrote that. It was a tweet and it went viral, I think around 2018. And that is where it starts. We have ideas sometimes, maybe in the shower or not. But instead of taking time to think about it, we just say, oh, nobody will believe me, and we let it go. But then a few people take time to process the idea and then develop a plan and get started. That is preparation. And of course, the moment you incorporate a company and start operating, that's no longer preparation. It's just like, pregnancy, right? Preparation is like pregnancy. When the woman gives birth, the child comes out, pregnancy ends, and then it becomes startup. That is the baby phase.
So startup, once the stage 1 comes, which is startup, you are running your daily operations like a startup company.
Exactly.
Then you move to the growth stage.
Exactly.
Is there any in between which is happening as a leader when you are moving from preparation to startup to growth? What is the change in the leadership style as per the versatile leader?
Excellent. That's very, very important question. And that is where many leaders miss. You see, from preparation to startup, not big change because you're still the architect, defining things. But from startup to growth, your style has to change because you have a lot of people being involved, and you need to, instead of using the architect metaphor, you begin to use the builder metaphor. The builders are the best people for growth stage. So that transition needs to also happen because you can't just keep defining and defining and defining things. That is what architects do. You need at some point to build on your model. And so there has to be that transition, not just for the staff, but also for the founder as well. And unfortunately, many founders struggle with that challenge.
I got it. There are a lot of people, first of all, on the preparation stage, they will prepare the plan, write it on something, and then start working on it.
Exactly.
Then when you are a startup, still you are defining a lot of things because this is a very early stage.
Exactly.
So in this stage, basically you're acting like an architect, where you're defining hundreds of things, be it rules, operational, SOPs. But that's not it. The moment it comes to growth, that has to be actually executed, implemented on ground.
Exactly.
For the results to come. Correct?
That's very correct. Yes.
Moving on from growth to maturity, what is the change in the leadership style and which exact concept plays out?
Okay. So what's the difference between growth and maturity? During growth stage, you are growing the business and you are defining things. A mature business, the way I define it is, it's a business that's from a leadership kind of perspective. It's a business that the founder can afford to take a break, go on vacation, can go on sabbatical leave, can afford to die, and yet the business will still be running. So if you're running a business, even if it's making billions of dollars, and you can't take a break from it, then it is not yet mature. And so growth stage, you are building, you're required, but then when it gets to maturity phase, the processes are solid, and things like ISO certification, put all these processes, mechanisms in place. And of course, leadership as well is very important. A mature business needs to have a proper leadership continuity.
So if you have to put in any persona here as well, from architect to builder is a growth stage.
Yes.
From growth to maturity, which kind of persona you can define?
You see, growth and maturity, if you look at maturity, look at the curve, maturity doesn't exist. You're either growing or you're declining. So we only take a portion of growth and a portion of decline, and we call it maturity. And that is to say, in terms of, metaphor to use, builder does very well at the early stage of maturity. But then when you start to have problems, that is a decline stage, then a builder may not be the best. You need a different metaphor. So I would say growth and maturity, growth and early maturity, you still need a builder metaphor to run them.
So when you say that it has to change, the persona has to change.
Exactly.
From builder to what?
Engineer.
Okay. And how do you define that? Why engineer? What is that role which engineer can play but not a builder, not an architect?
Well, I'm an engineer by training, so I can speak about this one, not just as a metaphor.
I am also engineer by education.
Okay. So engineers solve problems, right? That's what we're taught in school. It's about solving problems and improving on, if it's already working, then you improve on it. If there's a problem, you fix it. So decline is a problem. All the other phases have problems. But decline is a problem in itself. So when it comes to that, you really need to use the engineer metaphor to look at what really is a problem. Is it the processes? Is it the market? Of course, you have to really check to find out what the problem is and use the engineer kind of mindset to run the business.
But this is a bit contradictory as well. Why we are not able to see that thing that when we are preparing and we are starting up, I am the same person who saw a demand in the market, a gap in the market, and I started my business.
Mm-hmm.
Now when it is coming to declining, why I need to change my persona from an architect to an engineer? Why the same person with the same mentality cannot fix that problem?
Well, I think it's about Einstein say that we can't solve problems thinking the same way as we're thinking when we created them. So, circumstances change. So if you don't change and adapt, still doing exactly the same thing, you're going to have problems. You become a problem yourself. And so it is very important that, for instance, a startup of 1 or 2 persons, there's a way to run it. It's informal structure. You don't need to have, reporting line is very clear. But when you have 50 people working, you need to have proper structures in place. You can't run it the same way you were running it when it was a 2% thing, even though you are exactly the same person. So when it comes different stages, we require different way of thinking. So honestly, the adaptability is, I would say, is a very, very important quality. Use the engineer metaphor. Find out exactly why the decline started in the first place. Is it market issues? Is it your internal processes? Is it competition? Because you can't solve a problem you don't know. So first you have to define what the problem is. And once you know what the problem is, then you can think of the right solution for that specific aspect of the problem.
Now I'll come to your book's specific strategies and we'll cover that one by one.
Yeah.
So if I have to speak about the physician strategy of a versatile leader, what is that? Why it is important?
The physician one is a starting point for strategy. Let me explain that you have two parts. You have the tactical part and you have the strategic part.
Yes.
So physician is a starting point. Why? Because when we go to the doctor, he doesn't just give you prescription. If a doctor does that, you should run. They need to check to find out exactly what the sickness is.
Diagnose and analyze.
Exactly. And that is what a leader should do as well. Before you come up with a strategy, you need to understand exactly what is happening in the organization or around the organization before you decide the best course of action to take. And you do this if you are new to the position, or the organization is new, or there's a major event that have taken place.
Got it. Then when it comes to architect, I think you had to explain on the tactics part as well. Does that cover already in the physician aspect?
No, physician is mainly for strategy. So when it comes to tactics, there's a different metaphor, journalist.
Okay. Got it. So when it comes to the architect strategy of a versatile leader, we have discussed that on use case basis.
Yes.
You have to add on that, like as a versatile leader, what you should be doing as an architect.
Where as a versatile leader, okay, let me go back to physician. Physician check to see the status. And then if you realize that it's a new organization or it doesn't have a clear vision, this is where architect comes. Architects come to give the vision, the business model, design, the blueprint, all of that, that is what architects do.
I think your book is clearly step-by-step procedure. Now, by just first of the two strategies, I'm able to make sense of the rest. First is physician, then is architect, and builder is something who will execute it.
Exactly.
I read a book recently also, not recently, I think it's 1.5 years back, Technician, Manager and Entrepreneurship. I think it's E-Entrepreneurship, something like that the book name is, where they speak about the technician mindset, manager mindset, and the entrepreneur's mindset. Okay, deviating back, architect will give a blueprint, builder is the one who executes.
Exactly.
Engineer is the one who solves the problem. What about entrepreneur?
Entrepreneur, that is the most interesting one of all these strategies. Because you see, entrepreneurs have to deliver results. Just like every leader, right? As a leader, you have to deliver results. So when you, at all the time, it doesn't matter whether you being the architect or builder or engineer, you need to know you have to take ownership, just like an entrepreneur, take risk, just like entrepreneur, be optimistic, just like an entrepreneur, and deliver good results. That's it.
If I have to ask you on a personal note,
yes,
what do you think is the most difficult thing? I mean, these are all traits of an entrepreneur, physician, architect, builder, engineer. But just for me to know, what is the most difficult thing to be? An entrepreneur or any of these?
I think entrepreneur is the most difficult for lots of people.
And reason?
I think the reason is the risk involved. Okay, not just risk, but ownership. I would say, ownership. Because people don't like to take ownership.
Like, you mean ownership? By ownership, what do you mean? It's my own company. Let's put myself in this shoes. It's my own company. Everything belongs to me, the loss or the profit, whatever it is. I would by default take the ownership.
Yes, but you see, when things are going well, everybody wants to take ownership. When it's failing, nobody, even the one who built the business.
I think maybe in my sense, then it's not a leader. A leader is opposite. When it is failing, you should be taking ownership.
So we are on the same page. We are on the same page on this. And this is why, leadership is so simple. But this is where people fail. You could just go Google now, CEO of Nokia, when Nokia was going bankrupt. What did he say? He said that, We did all the right things, but somehow it failed. Right?
Exactly.
He didn't take ownership.
Got it. So this was all about the strategy. Now you have mentioned in your book about tactics. The first one is journalist. What do you mean by here tactics as a versatile leader, and what does journalist mean here?
Okay, where tactics is slightly different, or rather different from strategy, in the sense that these are things you do on a day-to-day basis. You know, strategy, you can plan, do your annual plan and so on, and you give a general direction. But tactics is something you do on a day-to-day basis.
Okay.
And it starts with the journalist metaphor. And let me explain what that is. A journalist, as a journalist, that's a leader who is using this journalist metaphor, you need to know what is happening on a day-to-day basis. For instance, every single day you know what is going on in the company. And how do you get to know that? How do you get to know that, everything is going well? So that
staying updated.
Exactly, staying
Being
updated.
on top of everything.
Exactly. And you need information.
And how do you do that?
Well, there are many ways to go about it. HP came up with something, they call it MBWA. Have you heard of that?
No. MBWA.
Management by working around.
Management by working around. Okay.
Yes.
What does that mean?
The founder of HP, he informally and unplanned visit to see what was happening. And he get useful information, which he used to make decisions. That is operational. Toyota have they have something they call Gemba. They would tell the managers, go to the Gemba. So
Gemba?
Yes.
Means the factory.
Yeah, the factory.
Okay.
And don't just sit in the office and receive reports. You need to go there and find out what is happening.
Okay, so you don't just take decisions on data and reports and the nice Excels, but you have to go on ground and check. And I mean, this is for all entrepreneurs, that we should be on ground. The more we touch loose from the ground as we go into growth and maturity stage, that will bring that decline stage more earlier. The more we are in touch with the ground reality of the market and of the company, that will help us stay longer in the
I think we're on the same page here.
So that is about the journalist, that you have to be on top of everything, knowing not just the report, but the news, how people feel, what employees feel, what market feels. So the journalist metaphor, I think, is the right word which you have used here. Normally we would use in MNCs or in our companies, data analysts, someone like that. But when it comes to journalist, it has a different figure altogether which comes on the table. Moving on to the coach thing.
Where coach is also a tactical metaphor, in the sense that that is how you select the team and how you coach them, and on a day-to-day basis as you're relating with your team. So it's about selection, teaching them, and also delegating, which is very key. Delegation for me is a very key point. We talk about it, but the best way to illustrate it is what soccer coaches do. They train their team, they send them on the field, and they stay outside. And they watch them play, whether the team is winning or losing. They have to watch, and we only give advice at specific break times or injury times. So you can learn that from a coach.
My God. After this learning of your book, I can really understand that you yourself are using on-ground approaches and taking real life examples, so that it comes to my mind. And especially this example of coach. I mean, before I asked you this question about coach, my mind was working coaching like tuition centers or maybe universities. But you are connecting this with sports coaching.
Exactly.
Where you don't play, but you guide. You stay on the sidelines making sure that your team wins. I mean, that's not easy. Most of the business owners take extra ownership where they would demean their own team. I mean to say, like, the moment they see something is going wrong, They won't allow the team to take that responsibility on the field, but eventually jump in and solve it, and then the team is not learning. So you have to set boundaries that you are sitting on sideline so
Exactly.
that you touch that maturity stage soon and maybe continue that maturity stage for a
Exactly.
much longer period of time. Very well understood. Thank you for that coaching aspect. Moving on to the parenting. I
Yes.
think in this world, in this era of Gen Z, where the parents are struggling, today you're sitting and telling me, I understand you're author, but I beg to you to make me understand how in this Gen Z world I should supposed to act like a parent in a company.
Okay. Let's start with the first one. Emotional intelligence. The best place to learn emotional intelligence is now from psychology books. Learn it from mothers. And let me explain. How does a mother know that that 1-month-old baby is crying because the diaper is wet? How do they know that the baby is crying because he is hungry or he is sick? They don't talk. They simply cry. And there's no difference between crying for food or crying when wet or something. So, and of course, crying is emotions, right? And mothers know that. How do they know? That is what emotional intelligence is all about. Being able to know through emotions what is really happening. So we can learn that from parents, especially mothers. And I like that today is, I think, Women's Day, right? So
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, so we're having this on the right day.
I definitely agree on that part. The role which women play, the men's cannot even understand it.
Yeah.
So I agree to that part. But I'll come back to the parent aspect again. I understand you have given a responsibility, one more responsibility to an entrepreneur, act like a parent, in which you are connecting that with emotional intelligence, which I can feel like that you want me to understand my people's problem without they telling me.
Exactly. Exactly. You look at them, their faces, and something is wrong here. And you need to do something about it. Of course, that is being a parent. And then another aspect of the parent metaphor is continuity of leadership. You see, every parent wants their children to succeed. Well, most good parents. Now, in the book, I have this story of my uncle. When I was around 26 or 7, we had a conversation and he asked me, do you have a girlfriend? When are you planning to get married? And I wanted to avoid the question in a very clever way. I started to talk about marriage in general and I explained what marriage was all about. Very long speech, trying to divert attention. He quietly listened to me. When I finished, he looked at me and said, go and get married. So why was he so interested? Because he wants a continuity of the family. You get married and then they're asking you, when are you going to have kids? Why is it? In fact, almost every culture, that is the usual, that is what has sustained the human race from the beginning till now. And there's an inbuilt mechanism that makes us want to, perpetuate the human race. We can use that same thinking to perpetuate our business, to think about continuity when we are not there, to have, business children or, leaders, leader kids that can carry on with what we do. Because it's just a matter of time. We get old and we'll not be able to do what we're doing today. So someone needs to be able to carry it out. And it's our responsibility to make sure that we have children, leader children that can take over from us.
Good. Now you change a lot of things in my perspective, but I'll still ask a blunt face-off question to you.
Yes.
I understand that as a parent, I need to nurture and think about the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
But at times there are some unrealistic expectations from the kids, be it business, be it at home.
Of course.
Where do you think I should set the boundaries and how to say no to that and still believe that it will be continued in the right manner? So where is that no here?
Well, actually, there's a funny story in my book here about my mom. And there's a whole section on boundaries. Growing up, we didn't have a lot of rules. There were very few, but they existed. One of them was that the mango tree we had at the back of our compound, we shouldn't climb it. We like climbing there, especially when it was in the season for fruit. We climb there, pluck fruit, and eat. He said, no, don't do that, because kids would fall off climbing and sometimes they get fractured. And my mom had a rule, specific rule. If she calls you, you answer immediately and you show up. These two rules, she was very serious about it. So one day my elder sister broke two at the same time. She hid, went to the back and climbed, because the mangoes, it was the season, right? Ripe mango. So she climbed. She was just about to pluck the mango tree when my mom called her. Lame. It was a dilemma. If she answered yes, the mom will know where she was. If she didn't answer, she'll be breaking another rule. So she tried to climb down very quickly and, kind of open her mouth a little bit, that kind of thing. And then she ran quickly to my mother. Look at her and said, it looks like you were on the mango tree when I called you, right? So she got punished. So boundaries are important, even in business. You can't have everybody coming to do whatever they want. Those boundaries have to exist. And that is why companies have policies in place. So you said those policies to create some kind of boundaries, what people can do and what they cannot do.
So that boundaries are clear. I understood your point. But my point is little different on that perspective. If somebody breaks that policy or boundaries, how to say no to that? How easy is it? And what should be done next as a parent currently running the company?
Okay, let me put it that way. When somebody steps outside the boundary, you use a different metaphor, the judge metaphor. Because, judges, they have the law or the policy, and that is what they follow. So if you break it, there's already a prescribed course of action to take. So when that happens, you have to manage your emotions, right? And deal with the situation in a very fair manner. That is what I was talking about here at the beginning, that I have cases where I had to terminate employment of some of my employees. It was hard, but I had to act as a judge, controlling my own emotions and making sure that they don't get in the way of fairness, because fairness, requires that sometimes we favor people and sometimes we actually make hard decisions.
I got it. So this is very clear to me that if the rules are broken, not followed as per the policy, you act as a judge. That
Exactly.
is the everyday tactic which you follow.
Mm-hmm.
But I have one more thing to add.
Good.
I think I'm too young today sitting in front of you. So I'm talking too much about breaking the policies. So a lot of questions are coming to my mind. My thing is that if you're acting as a judge, you're following a constitution, which is written by the country or by the company. A lot of times constitutions and the policies are not written in the favor of the people, but it's written by one person. So how do you think as a judge, just follow, because in a company, you are the judge and you are the creator of the constitution, both. On the contrary, in a country, the constitution is written by someone and it's followed by a judge. So how do you maintain that in a company?
Let me put it this way. Even though you're creating a company today, there are already set of laws governing how you operate. There's a labor law that gives guidelines on what you can do. It may not be that very specific, but it's also common sense. We human beings, we are created with inborn kind of thing to know good and bad. And people know them. There's usually a common understanding. And so you can use that common sense to decide what is good and bad, even if it's not written down. And yeah, it makes sense.
So you mean to say it will again boil down to, in that cases, about what's wrong, what's right.
Exactly.
Got it. Moving on to the pilot tactics. What do you mean by pilot tactics in a versatile leader?
Where that is when you have to deal with maybe a crisis or a kind of emergencies. Then you have to switch on, the mindset of a pilot. And this one, I find it very, very interesting in the sense that we don't wish for it, but from time to time we face, crises or emergencies in business. And pilots, from what I have learned, gathered from friends and also reading from books, they get training, they get trained. Before you start flying an aeroplane, you actually have to have a proper training and a proper certificate that shows that you can do. But it doesn't stop from there. They have recurrent training between every 6 months to 1 year. They have training just to make sure that they get their mind refreshed on the principles, and also do a lot of simulations to make sure that they still remember what to do when they have an emergency situation. And I come to realize from my pilot friend that even their spouses get prepared. It train them what to do if they receive bad news from, the company about maybe their spouse being involved in an accident. So, so preparation is a key to dealing with emergencies. All possible things you can think of need to
So you're
prepare.
saying when it comes to tactics, basically, it's a concept called, which is around I think 5 years, something which is now a day-to-day tactics in every corporate, which we call business continuity management.
Exactly.
And this is the most important concept. When I was an employee in the bank, I used to feel like, what is this? But when I am in business today, I understand what is business continuity management. I think that is what is pilot here, that whatever happens, if there is a disaster, which is a natural calamity or something other emergency, your business should continue. When we speak
Exactly.
about banks, now even countries are preparing, where if there is a attack by the country, you have iron domes. In a bank, you have servers. If something crashes, there is a backup stored. So basically, you are preparing for the worst. We call it emergency in the pilot case. So
Exactly.
as a versatile leader, you should be prepared. Your spouse should be prepared. Your family should be prepared. So you don't panic and lose everything. This was supposed to happen. This happened, but now continue the work.
Exactly. That's the whole point about the pilot metaphor.
So this is very, very clear to me. Now moving on to the soldier aspect, the tactics. What is that?
Where the soldier metaphor, when there's sometimes when things get very tough and you need to be a soldier. But I mean, let's talk about the good things or the easier things. Before you use force, a soldier is trained to be a very disciplined person because this is required. Otherwise, without discipline, it will be a big mess. So discipline is one thing. Second thing is loyalty. Loyalty
to the country
before
your life.
Exactly. So these factors are very, very important. So you take this to leadership, it's the same. Before you go fighting, you need to make sure that you train yourself to be disciplined. A leader needs to be as disciplined as a soldier.
Courageous, loyal.
Yeah, exactly. These are qualities that every leader needs.
Got it. So if I were to speak about soldier, you are mentioning not just the fighting aspect of it. It is about preparing yourself for the fight
Exactly.
and having these characteristics.
Mhm.
When it comes to fighting in an entrepreneurship world, how would you define a soldier? What do you mean by a soldier? Because ultimately, the goal of a soldier is to fight as well. So, how would you define that tactic?
Actually, I define it in the book as an external metaphor, in the sense that it's supposed to deal with external situations. You know, when fighting takes place in a team, in a country, they call it civil war.
Yes.
You see, civil and civilian come together, right? They're not civil war. Even the combination doesn't make sense. So a soldier is supposed to be preparing to protect the country from external aggression, fighting what is coming outside to attack. So this metaphor is to help you deal with external situations. Basically, that is what it is. Even competition, you have to also be careful. Even when things get out of hand, how do you deal with those?
Why we have used such an aggressive tactic as a soldier? What came to your mind that you use such an aggressive tactic?
Is
Metaphor.
the qualities like courage to act that entrepreneurs and leaders need. That is very key. And then loyalty. You know, we need people who work for us to be loyal, but we also need to demonstrate that loyalty. For when it comes to the soldier, I focus a lot more on the qualities of a good soldier.
Got it.
Rather than what they actually do.
Got it. What about diplomat? Although this is well understood tactic and has to have with many reasons, but what's your reason here to put in a versatile leader?
Yeah, as I mentioned at the beginning, this was the last of the metaphors that I learned, and I didn't have appreciation for it until it hit me very hard. The diplomat metaphor, basically, when it comes to negotiation, which in business is very, very important, negotiating, and even when you have people who have, let's say, disagreement and you need to settle them. You see, a judge will settle disputes within the team. But what if you don't have control? What if the two people who are fighting are friends? You don't have the right to tell them you are right, you are wrong. You can't punish them, right? But they are friends. You don't want them to fight. What do? You do what diplomats do.
Diplomacy.
Yeah, diplomacy. You basically mediate between them. And so it's a very, very important metaphor in life and in business. And of course, they use tact, which is something that is very key. Tact, basically, you don't just consider facts, but you consider the feelings when you are making decisions.
So in diplomacy, how does the collaboration and humility also plays an important role?
Yeah, collaboration, which means you don't have authority in a collaborative kind of system. You don't have authority to kind of tell people what to do. So you have to find ways to engage, just the same way as an ambassador of India to UAE has no control over the UAE government, but have to find a way to work with them, in a collaborative way. And so humility is one aspect that helps us to appreciate the value and the perspective of others, not just our own. If we come out every day saying, I'm the best, we will not listen to what other people are saying or doing. And so humility is very important.
I want to ask a realistic question from you.
Mm-hmm.
Being a young person starting up an entrepreneurship journey, getting into starting your own business, how do you expect, or we believe that that particular person can act as a judge and diplomat at the same time? Because it's completely opposite. Judge has to take the decision, because right now we are speaking about a lot of personas at
Yes.
in one particular person.
Yeah.
But these are completely opposite personas.
Mm-hmm.
How is it possible that a coach and parent at the same time can act, a journalist and a pilot can act, more importantly, a diplomat and judge cannot. How do you believe that? What makes you believe that a versatile leader can have all these personas at the same time?
Well, I wouldn't say at the same time. I would say they need this as the situation requires. Fortunately, you don't have your house on fire and have to negotiate a peace deal at the same time. Usually they happen at different times. So when you are in a certain situation, then what fits the situation is what you should use. Even if it is not so natural to you. As I said, personally, I'm a coach. Coaching is something I'm strong at. I'm an architect, in terms of the way I act. When it comes to diplomacy, I'm not good at it, but I appreciate its value. There's a big difference between me, Tese, now than Tese before 2007, when I didn't have appreciation for it. And so the point I'm making here is that when you know that this particular situation requires a different type of mindset or different type of persona, even if it's not natural to you, even if you're the only person there, at least you will try to use it, even if you're not so good at it. But if the situation for you to negotiate and you decide to bomb, because all you know is to use a social metaphor, it will be a total mess. So the situation detects what we should use. And maybe that will take us to, the teamwork, how teams work. In a team, people are not the same. There are different personalities, and some are better diplomats than others, and others are better pilots than others. So then you know who to assign for what task.
I'll come back to your learning of Harvard, when you went to Harvard and they gave you the definition of leader. I want to listen to that lines again. What exactly you define as a leader? Then I'll give you my definition after learning the whole book today.
Yeah. Where, as I said, Professor Robert Stephen Kaplan defined leadership as figuring out your beliefs and acting on them in such a way that it add value to others. Now, I break it down into three main points: beliefs, actions, and benefits. The beliefs and actions are that of a leader. Then the benefit has to be for others. And that is what sets leaders apart. I'm not saying at all that when you act on your beliefs to benefit yourself is something wrong. No, it is not wrong at all. It's just that it is not leadership. That's all. For it to be leadership, it means the actions you are taking based on your beliefs have to be for benefit of others.
Got it. And what I learned today from your book in terms of leadership, I feel like that as a leader, I might be leading a soldier, a pilot, a diplomat, a journalist, a coach in my company in different departments. But I have to somewhere imbibe all those personas in myself and use it whenever it is required.
Exactly.
With that, I would summary up your book, and then we'll have a nice rapid fire round. So I'll start what exactly is the versatile leader from the S curve. So we discussed S curve. This is something which is in country, in company, in life, where you start from scratch, which is first of all getting that idea, then starting up, growth, maturity, and then final declining. So how you take care of this curve is depending what actions you take, but this is how the curve will go on, and it is perpetual. Moving on to the strategies, which I believe is the most important aspect, that as a versatile leader, the first thing you have to do is act like a physician. Don't give any prescription until you diagnose and analyze. Then we moved on to the architect thing. Once you understand what is the problem, give the prescription, but then build a blueprint to act on it. Once you're done with the architect, you have to have an implementer, which is a builder in this case, who will take actions on your architecture plan or your blueprint. Then, once you build, there is nothing possible in this world, be it a machine, building, or anything, which does not have an room of improvement and which cannot be continued for the years or ages to come. It requires improvement because when it is built, there must be some problems. There comes the engineer to solve the problems. Once we speak about solving the problem, we come to the entrepreneurial mindset, which is about taking risk. Taking risk is the most important aspect. If you have all these things, being an engineer, architect, builder, if you don't know how to take risk, innovate in the market, in the company, then you are tend to fail. So this is a versatile leader strategy. Then we moved on to the tactics, which is basically day-to-day things which you do. So strategy is a long-term vision, maybe 6 months, 1 year, depending what is your current company age. Practice is something which you do daily. So the number one you mentioned is journalist. I believe a journalist wants to know everything and wants to remain on top of everything and wants to report everything to the management. Either you are that management or someone else, but you are on top of everything, where we discussed about HP and Toyota as well. So be on top of everything, know what is happening in the company and take your decisions based on that. Then we discussed about coach, which I misunderstood that it's some tuition and universities. It's about sports coaching, where you stand on the sidelines and watch your team win and give only advice when you want to, or maybe when they come outside the boundary and you tell them do this on the battlefield or on the sports field, but don't jump into their decision making. Let them make the decisions. Then we discuss about parenting, which opened my eyes completely, that it's not about parenting that you take care of your child, give whatever he wants, but understanding the emotional intelligence, what he needs. Is it correct or no is a different thing, but you have to see first that what he needs. We compared that to the baby aspect as well. And then in parenting, I understood one more concept today, that you have to continue a legacy. And if you have to continue a legacy, be it in your family, be it in your business, there is no chance that if you allow people to leave, then it is not going to happen. You have to cultivate that nurture, and that is only possible through parenting. Then we moved on to the judge aspect, where we discuss that the policies has been already framed out. You need to take some hard decisions with the constitution of the policies you have built. Then we discuss about the pilot, which is again linked to the concept of business continuity management, that prepare yourself for the natural calamities and anything which can happen in the business, which is an emergency perspective. It will not give you time of weeks or months to act. You have to act fast. You need to prepare yourself and your family for that in your business, in your country. Then we discuss about the soldier aspect. Well, I was discussing that in an aggressive manner, but you change my perspective. It is more of being disciplined, courageous, and the most important, loyalty. When the ship is sinking, the first people who move out are not the people who are the soldiers. It's the last one out is the soldier. Defines the loyalty for that ship, for the country, and for the company. Then we discuss the diplomacy. Not every time you can fight and judge people around. You need to sit down, discuss, communicate, and act as the right diplomat and solve the problems out with the right diplomacy use. And there we discuss about the collaboration factor as well, how you collaborate with the market competitors maybe, and maybe people inside your company. So these was all about tactics. I hope we were able to cover everything, and this book really opened my eyes. Thank you so much for bringing this book in the market. I would love to really promote this as a brand ambassador for the book to every leader out there and to the companies who really needs the versatile leader.
Thank you. Yeah, this is good. I would just like to add that apart from the book, as I said, this was built out of experience and also training. So we do give training. The versatile leader training is a 3 days training, and here in the UAE as well. In fact, what I always encourage organizations, based on my experience, is getting everybody trained. In my company, even drivers have the training, because you want a common framework where, everybody speaking the same language.
Now, time for a difficult thing for you, Mr. Tese. It's a rapid fire. I'll ask you a question and you have to answer in seconds, not minutes. Okay. So the first question is, what's the most versatile excuse you have heard from an employee?
It is not my fault.
It's not my fault.
Yeah.
Okay. If your leadership style had catchphrase, what would it be?
Versatile.
What's harder, leading a team or assembling IKEA furniture without swearing?
Of course, leading a team.
If your book had a sequel, what would it be called?
It will be called The Versatile Decision Maker. Actually, I'm already working on that.
Nice. So taking an action, not just being a leader. What's your go-to phrase? I have everything under control, or no?
I don't think about control. I think about adapting myself to a situation.
So acting like a true versatile leader.
Exactly.
If your leadership skills were a dish, what dish would that be?
Kalulu.
What is that?
That's an Angolan dish that everything is mixed inside.
So you get taste of everything, and you
There's
don't get
vegetable
taste
and
of
meat and different type of things inside. Yeah.
Got it. One leadership mistake that still haunts you at 3 a.m.
When I failed to act according to my belief.
And describe the worst meeting you have ever attended in 3 words.
No focus.
No focus.
Yeah.
Completely out of the... Okay. If you had a magic wand, what's one thing you would make disappear from corporate life forever?
It will be inefficient leadership, that is ineffective leadership. I will make it disappear completely from the world, not just corporate.
Okay. If you were in the shoes of an employee, what is that one lie which you would use or not use with your leader?
One lie?
Yes.
Lie is no-go area for me, whether employee or a leader. It's not a go area. Any type of lie is totally unacceptable.
Thank you so much for taking this rapid fire, Mr. Tese. It was great meeting you today. I'll be looking forward for the versatile decision maker.
Thank you.